The Sonoran Desert at night stretched under a full moon, saguaros standing like silent sentinels along the border.
12 years on this shift. The one thing that still chilled him was an unwritten rule passed among veterans.
His thermal scope painted the desert in cold greens and hot whites, except for one shape that radiated nothing.
Cold signature. That was the term. A human figure visible to the naked eye but absent on thermal. Protocol said ignore it.
The sign on the dirt road read, "Authorized personnel only." But how did you authorize against something that ignored physics?
Sergeant Mendez. This is Reyes. I've got a cold one at grid 17. How do you want me to handle it?
Copy that, Reyes. You know the directive. Do not engage. Keep moving. That's an order.
The figure stood motionless on the scope, a void in the shape of a man, absorbing the moonlight with no heat to give back. Anthony forced himself to turn away, his boots crunching on sand as he retreated to the truck, leaving the impossible shape behind.
But at the next checkpoint, the image still lingered. A cold, dark outline burned into his peripheral vision.
Back at the station, the cold signature replayed in his mind like a broken loop, a void where a man should be.
Sergeant, about that cold signature, has anyone ever actually found out what they are?
That's a door you don't open, Reyes. Some rules exist because the alternative is worse.
I heard rumors about agents who chased them and never came back. Is that just bull?
No, it's not. A few good men decided to play hero. They're listed as AWOL, but we both know they didn't just walk off.
Later, alone, Anthony found the locked file cabinet Mendez had indicated. The lock was old. It gave way with a hard pull. Inside were folders stamped closed, no lades. Missing agent reports spanning 2 decades. One dated August 2018 caught his eye. Last seen pursuing an unidentified target. He copied the files, hiding them in his personal bag. The desert outside seemed to press against the window, watching.
In his bunk, the silence louder than any siren. He asked himself, what really happened to those men out there? The cold signature was no longer a mystery to solve. It was a warning he was starting to ignore.
Over the next 3 nights, Anthony returned to the same sector, his truck idling under a watchful moon.
The thermal scope flickered, dark human outlines flaring at the edges, then gone.
He logged false coordinates, sending the station data that placed him miles away from his true hunt. At his bunk, the silence pressed in, the window a black mirror reflecting his own haunted stare.
That silhouette outside the glass at 2 a.m. It never moved. Just stood there, absorbing the dark.
He rushed outside, rifle raised, but found only an unnatural shadow cast by nothing, stretching across the disturbed sand.
His own boot prints now seemed deeper, as if something had stepped into them before him.
Your patrol routes don't add up, Reyes. What are you doing out there?
Just testing a theory, Sergeant. No protocol broken. The lie tasted like dust.
At dawn, he stood alone in the desert, the cold presence still lingering, a phantom at the edge of light on a moonless August night. The thermal scope lit up, with a shape walking with slow, deliberate strides, closer than any before.
His thumb hovered over the radio. The lie formed before he could stop it. Sergeant, I've got possible foot traffic. I am going to pursue on foot.
Wait for backup, Reyes. Do not approach alone.
He ignored the order, lowering his goggles. The world went green.
He stepped out of the truck, Mem 4 tight against his shoulder, and started a steady jog toward the figure that had no right to exist. Cold signature never sped up, never acknowledged him, just walked on, an untiring phantom.
His boots sank into soft sand with each stride, the distance refusing to close.
In the distance, the figure crested a low ridge, never breaking stride.
Without hesitation, he followed it over the edge, the hunter finally becoming the prey of his own obsession.
The figure stayed 30 yards ahead, its pace never faltering, even as Anthony's breath scraped his throat.
How was it not tired? He checked his watch. The glowing hands read 314, the second hand barely moving.
The GPS on his vest blinked, signal lost, its digital compass spinning uselessly in place. An owl swooped low, its shadow stretching impossibly long across the sand, darker than the night itself. He stumbled over a rock, catching himself just before the ground rose to meet him, eyes never leaving the silhouette. They descended into a dry arroyo. The figure crossed with an easy stride that barely disturbed the dust.
Sweat slicked his face, his goggles fogging at the edges, blurring the phantom into a smear against the dark.
Around the figure, the air shimmered, a cold mirage, like heat rising off pavement, but radiating a bone-deep chill.
He felt the cold creeping into his muscles. A paradox, his body burning, yet a spreading numbness at the edges.
And yet he kept running deeper into the hushed desert, the silence pressing in like a held breath, waiting. Nearly an hour in, they passed a twisted saguaro, the same crooked arm he had marked earlier. A cold loop.
We're going in circles. The words churned in his mind, heavy as lead.
His flashlight caught boot prints in the sand, his own from earlier, but they were heading the opposite direction.
His compass spun lazily, north, a forgotten promise. The desert was rewriting its own geography.
The figure turned sharply, descending into a deep arroyo. Anthony hesitated at the rim. M4 braced. Thermal scan revealed a cold human shape waiting at the bottom, a dark absence in the green glow. He scrambled down the sandy bank, loose grains hissing beneath his boots. The figure stood motionless. Fresh boot prints marked the arroyo floor, the tread pattern unmistakable, identical to his own.
Those were his prints, but they walked the other way, as if he had already been here and was coming back.
He knelt, flashlight trembling, tracing the impossible pattern. The desert held its breath around him. He stood, and against all logic, began to follow his own retreating tracks out of the arroyo.
The boot prints were impossibly fresh, sharp edges, crisp, as if pressed mere minutes ago.
They led a straight path, a reverse journey through the silent desert, retracing every step he had taken in pursuit. At one intersection, two sets overlapped, forming a perfect figure 8 in the sand, an infinity of his own making.
His watch still glowed 3:14, yet his body screamed that hours had bled away into nothing.
The trail ended at the dirt road. Beside his patrol truck, engine idling with headlights cutting the dark, he circled the vehicle, finding no other tracks, no sign of anything but his own ghostly presence.
His reflection in the side mirror was a stranger's face, hollowed, haunted, a man already half lost.
With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and took a photograph of the boot prints, damning proof of the impossible. Then he climbed into the truck. The cold signature vanished, leaving only a photo and a mind unspooling. He drove back to the station in a haze, the radio's squawks unanswered, the desert blurring past. He parked and slipped inside, avoiding the gaze of a passing agent like a guilty man. In a small evidence room, he locked the door and booted his laptop, the silence absolute.
The transfer bar crept forward, his reflection on the screen a stranger staring back.
The footage began, himself running, the desert a green blur, and ahead, a shape that had no heat. On the thermal overlay, only his body glowed hot, no second presence at all.
But visually, the figure was there, clear as the moon, a paradox in pixels.
He paused, enhanced the frame. The cold figure wore a Border Patrol uniform identical to his own.
Its posture mirrored his, the same tilt of the head, the same way he carried his rifle.
His hands began to shake, the mouse cursor trembling over the image, dread pooling in his stomach. He advanced the video frame by frozen frame, each click a hammer blow against reason.
The figure turned its head. Moonlight caught the face, and the world tilted.
It was his own jawline, his own nose, but younger, with a shadow of a beard and eyes wide with fear.
That's not possible. That's me. The whisper scraped from his throat.
The timestamp on the footage showed 3:14 minutes before he'd even left the truck.
He had been chasing himself. The realization landed like a bullet.
He stumbled to a mirror on the wall. His reflection didn't match the fear in those younger eyes.
He slumped back, mind clawing for a rational foothold. There was none.
He copied the footage to an encrypted drive, each keystroke a confession to himself. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, seeing his own face, younger, afraid, staring back from the dark. The next morning, he opened the stolen files on his laptop, cross-referencing dates and details.
Every missing agent's last radio call ended the same. Pursuing a subject. Then silence.
Each file's final timestamp was frozen at Gwazensenji Jerusalem, a brand burned into each disappearance.
He found a photo of one agent. The same green uniform, the same broad shoulders, a mirror decades old.
On a forgotten conspiracy forum, a user described echoes in the desert agents doomed to chase themselves forever. He printed a sector map, circling each disappearance location. The marks formed a tight spiral.
The spiral's center lay squarely in the Sasabe sector, his own patrol ground.
He opened the August 2018 file again, but the agent's name was blacked out with redaction ink.
Coffee and fear fueled him for 48 hours straight, the screen bleaching his vision.
At the edges of his sight, shadows now flickered, human shapes that vanished when he turned. Under a black light, the redacted name on the 2018 file revealed itself. Reyes, his own name. The internal database returned a single line, restricted, administrative. The agency had buried it deep. A retired agent's voice crackled through the phone. That name sounds familiar, but I was told never to speak of it.
The line went dead mid-sentence. Someone had gotten to him first. He thrusts the file at Sergeant Mendez. Who was he? And why does he have my name?
Mendez's face drained of color. Where did you get that? That case was sealed off for a reason. He ordered, "Stay away from this, Reyes, for your own sake." But his eyes betrayed naked terror.
When he returned to the cabinet, the folder was gone, vanished without a trace. The hidden camera he'd planted captured Mendez pocketing the file at exactly 3:14 a.m.
In that moment, Anthony understood. He could trust no one. The truth was his to chase alone.
Alone in his bunk, Anthony sat with a half-empty whiskey bottle on the floor. The silence his only company.
A photo of his daughter and ex-wife stood on the nightstand. He hadn't called them in weeks. Safer that way.
He turned to his laptop and wrote a long encrypted email to his retired mentor, attaching the body cam footage and research.
He hovered over send, picturing himself in a padded cell. The label of crazy would bury the truth forever.
Instead, he saved it as a draft, and silent tears cut tracks through the dust on his face.
Then he caught his reflection in the dark window. It seemed to shift, independent of his own movement.
With a choked cry, he smashed the window with his fist. Glass shattered, and blood bloomed across his knuckles.
He wrapped the wound with a rag, staring at the blood seep through. The email would remain unsent.
At dawn, he walked into the desert alone, rifle left behind, hoping to see a cold signature. Any sign he wasn't insane. Against the rising sun, he saw only his own silhouette stretched thin over the empty ground, and the desert remained silent. He combed public records and internal directories, searching for any trace of the missing Anthony Reyes. A 2016 Academy graduation photo surfaced. A young man with haunted eyes, captioned Anthony Reyes.
Those were the same eyes that had stared back at him from the body cam. Younger, but identical.
He slammed the laptop shut, his breath ragged, the puzzle pieces clicking into a horrifying pattern. A call to the Academy confirmed it. Agent Anthony Reyes was scheduled to transfer to his sector.
This wasn't a coincidence. It was the missing agent's younger brother, walking right into the loop.
He shot to his feet, knocking over the chair. He had to warn him before he stepped into the same trap.
He stared at the photo of his daughter. If he failed, another family would be torn apart.
He dialed the number from the records, his finger trembling. It rang twice, then voicemail.
A hoarse whisper. Don't take the transfer. It's not safe. Stay away from this sector.
Anthony stormed into Mendez's office, pale and sweating, the truth clawing at his throat.
Sergeant, I need to talk about the 2018 case.
Mendez raised a hand. Hold that thought. Your new partner just arrived. Come in.
The door opened, and a younger agent in unwrinkled green stepped forward, duffel bag over his shoulder.
Anthony Reyes. This is Anthony Reyes. Welcome to the sector. I'll leave you to get acquainted.
The younger man offered a hand, his voice earnest. Nice to meet you. I heard we share more than a name.
Anthony stared at that face, the same one from the body cam, now animated with life and a tentative smile.
The words scraped out. You shouldn't be here.
The younger agent's smile died. He pulled his hand back, searchingly, the room suddenly colder. Mendez looked between them, his own expression shifting from confusion to deep disquiet. Anthony led the younger Reyes to a small windowless briefing room, the door clicking shut with finality. Without a word, he pulled out his tablet and loaded the body cam footage, the green night vision filling the screen. The younger agent watched, confusion giving way to pallor as the phantom figure took shape ahead of the running man.
When the doppelganger glanced back, the younger man gasped. That's my brother.
His hands began to shake violently. The tablet almost slipped from his grip, the image jittering.
He disappeared in August. They said he just walked off shift. I never believed it. His voice cracked. He looked so scared. Why did he look so scared?
Anthony could only whisper, I don't know.
The younger Anthony cried silently, clutching a worn photograph of his brother, the same worried eyes staring up. They sat in the buzzing silence, the weight of the impossible truth pressing down like a physical force.
My brother used to talk about shadows in the desert at night. I thought it was just stress.
Anthony produced the boot print photos, the frozen watch, the 3:14 timestamp from a dozen disappearances. He stared at the pattern, his voice barely a whisper. It's a loop, a goddamn loop. They're all chasing their own ghosts forever. He grabbed Anthony's arm, fingers digging. You can't ever go after one again. Promise me.
How could he refuse? The young man's eyes were a mirror of his own fear.
I promise, he said. But the words felt like a lie before they left his mouth.
Even as he said it, the desert's pull whispered back, a cold current tugging at his resolve.
Outside the window, night fell over the saguaros, painting the world in shades of violet and a deeper, colder dread.
I'll stay here. Maybe I can find him. Maybe I can bring him peace.
They parted without another word, each step weighted with the burden of an impossible truth that would never fully release its grip. Days passed in a brittle calm. Anthony followed protocol to the letter, but his gaze never left the horizon. On a dawn patrol, his thermal scope pinged not one, but two cold signatures standing together on a low ridge.
One figure held its head at a slight angle, the exact posture of the younger Reyes. He grabbed the radio. Any units on the east perimeter? I've got 2 visual anomalies. Anyone out here? Only static returned.
The translucent figures turned in unison and walked slowly into the desert, side by side, without a backward glance.
Every instinct screamed to follow, but the promise he made burned in his chest. He turned the truck around instead.
He raced back to the station, boots pounding through the barracks hallway, heart hammering against his ribs. There he was, the younger Anthony, sprawled on a bunk, breathing deeply, completely unaware of the specters outside.
Relief washed over him, then curdled into confusion. If the younger agent was here, whose outline had he seen on the ridge?
He checked the younger agent's locker, The portable thermal scope was missing.
You went out last night, didn't you? The missing scope gave you away.
I had to. I thought maybe I could see him just once.
Anthony demanded the body cam footage. They hunched together over a screen in the dim room. The grainy video showed the younger agent trudging through the desert, voice calling his brother's name. Static crackled over the audio. The timestamp glitched, then froze on 3:14. A second figure stepped into the frame. Not the missing brother, but the younger Anthony himself, walking toward him. On screen, the younger Anthony froze, his double's face twisted in terror, a reflection of his own shock. The recording cut to black, leaving only the afterimage of that horrified face.
Is that me? Is that what happened to my brother?
Anthony could only nod, the weight of the cycle now undeniable, binding them both to the same fate. The two Antonys sat across from each other, coffee cups untouched, steam fading in the stale air. Maps, body cams, stills, and boot print photos covered the table, a gallery of the impossible.
He traced the spiral on the map. This is where my brother vanished, and this is where you saw the figure.
Maybe they're not dead. Maybe they're just out of sync, stuck between heartbeats. I think the only way to beat it is to not play the game. Never follow them.
The younger man's eyes burned. What if I could save my brother? Just one more chase.
Anthony grabbed his shoulder. That's exactly what the loop wants. Don't feed it.
They made a pact then, no pursuit, no matter what. A verbal wall against the unseen. They shook on it, gripped tight, eyes hollow, an oath sworn over cold coffee and colder truths. That night, both dreamed of walking in opposite directions, meeting their own younger faces in the dark. Weeks later, on a routine sweep, Anthony's thermal scope flickered, then flooded with cold black silhouettes.
Central. I've got multiple unknowns, no heat signatures. Repeat, multiple.
The radio erupted with other agents' voices, a chorus of confusion and rising alarm.
All units, lockdown protocol. Nobody leaves the station. Nobody wanders off.
He spotted the younger Reyes in the parking lot. Face ghostly pale, a silent mirror of his own terror.
Through the station's grimy window, a slow wave of translucent figures drifted past the perimeter fence.
Seal the gates. Nobody leaves until dawn.
Dawn wouldn't save them. The cold signatures were always there, just waiting to be seen.
His gaze fell on the wall of missing posters, and he knew their number would grow before sunrise. Outside the gate, a single cold signature stood motionless, facing them, patient as the desert night. In the lockdown, Anthony found a dark corner of the office, propped his phone, and hit record.
If you are watching this, Mihija, know I tried. These are the names of the lost. He listed them, his voice splintering on Anthony Reyes like a broken prayer.
He uploaded the video to a cloud account rigged with a dead man's switch. If he went silent, the world would know. In another room, the younger Anthony did the same, clutching his brother's photograph, his own testament to the void. As the first threads of dawn wove over the mountains, the figures outside began to dissolve like frost.
Looks like they're gone. For now.
They met outside, drained, their faces pale mirrors of exhaustion.
One more day.
They looked out over the desert, knowing that when dusk returned, so would the cold signatures, locked in their endless march. Anthony returned to his patrols, a ghost among ghosts. The desert hadn't changed, but he had.
His thermal scope painted the same void shapes every night. He no longer flinched.
He drove past a translucent figure standing near a saguaro, not even slowing down, inside the truck. His face was calm, his eyes hollow. He glanced at his daughter's photograph taped to the dashboard.
He muttered, "Just another night." A part of him wondered if she'd ever see the video.
Through his night vision, multiple cold signatures stood at intervals along the road. He slowed as one turned. Its silhouette mirrored his own. Then he pressed the accelerator, leaving it behind as the moon set, the final frame. a cold signature's outline fading into the dawn sky, hinting at an eternal recurrence.